Hey, hey, magical being. Welcome to episode 19, titled Consistency Builds Confidence. So, if this is your first time here and you're officially breaking your virginity with me, I promise to be gentle. And if you are coming back, halala, welcome back. So, today was an episode which I guess was prompted from yesterday's episode, in which right at the end I made reference to how I was once triggered when someone referenced and mentioned how I had no confidence within me. And at that time, I really believed that I was fostering a lot of confidence. There were many things that I was doing in my world that I felt were things that were portraying or invoking confidence within me. So it was quite interesting when this individual said what they said. And it was very interesting to feel the visceral feelings in my body as they said it. So yes, it probably happened maybe 3 years now. And it was actually with my then Sifus at the time. I was doing martial arts, and I actually just embarked on the journey. And we were out for coffee because we became, I guess, more than just dojo master and teacher, but I viewed it as we became good friends, or we were ensuing the aspect of friendship. And it was just so interesting when the one particular person made reference to how I lacked confidence. So I have no doubt that there was truth in that statement. And I even remember this individual always used to adjust my posture. So I used to sit very slouched in my body, and they always used to just tap my tummy or touch me on the back and remind me to straighten up. So I guess that in itself was somewhat of an indicative sign that there was a degree of confidence lacking within me. But I guess I saw there was confidence in other areas. I'm an individual that loves to go to the beach and puts on her Beats headphone and dances like a crazy human without a care in the world. And hey, in fact, if there's an audience, I love it even more. Perhaps it's the theatrics and the drama and the magic that it invokes in me in some shape, way, or form. But yes, I really thought that I had fostered and was fostering this aspect and element of confidence. And in hindsight, and as our relationship grew and as we continued, I got to see how there's a lot of obviously projection in the world. And sometimes my lack of confidence is someone else's lack of confidence. But the fact that I was triggered meant that there was something in me that needed to be observed and looked at. And it was so amazing because that relationship ultimately led me to finding my voice and standing up for myself in a shape, way, and form that I had never done before. So I'm very grateful for it, and I'm very grateful for the trigger that arose within me. And it just ultimately assisted in shaping and fostering a more confident individual. I have shared this on another episode before, but with this relationship with these two individuals, Sifus at the time, there was an experience that happened, and we were asked to lead the dojo. Myself and my kids at the time. I had actually recently just acquired my first belt, so I was quite excited, and I was truly loving the practice and mastering of martial arts. And yes, it was an experience which ensued, which in essence, I just fundamentally believe we had very different value systems. And I guess our value system wasn't seen in the same light as their value system, and their value system wasn't seen in the same light as ours. And that was interesting because at the time I was also attending yoga classes on that side with one of the sifus, and it was starting to play such a fundamental role and part in my world. And it was just so heartbreaking when our entire family was asked to not return. For a couple of days, I was like, oh, what's going to happen to the yoga and what's going to happen to like my practice in terms of practicing yoga on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Mondays and Thursdays. I think that's what it was. And so interesting. I feel like I'm rambling suddenly, which means my energy is clearly very scattered. So just excuse me for a moment while I just actually take a nice deep breath and find the grounding. So yes, we were asked to leave this wonderful premises not only for martial arts, but also for yoga, for reasons which in my personal opinion were completely unwarranted and blown completely out of proportion. But they were what they were. And I don't want to harp on that in this episode at all. But it was just so fascinating and interesting to view what form of attachment I had fostered or grown with those individuals. Like I'd almost become so dependent on them. And I felt that I didn't have the knowingness or perhaps even the confidence within myself to do what I was loving to do. I mean, I was practicing yoga before I even started going there. But it was so interesting that when we were asked to leave and not return, it really left a gaping hole in my world and in my children's world especially. And I was like, wow, how the fuck, like, I don't know how to transmute this pain and alchemize this and all that kind of stuff. So it was really interesting. And I found myself being like, well, fuck it. If I can't go there for yoga, I will foster it within my own time and in my own space and get on the mat every day. That's what I started to do. I started to flow on my mat every single day. I wanted to alchemize and transmute this pain so much that I even purchased a hand pan, which is in one of my episodes, which I've already discussed. But in addition to the hand pan, what I also did was I was like, no, fuck it. Okay. I'm just going to become and do a yoga teacher training course. Now, at that time, I had already done a 200-hour yoga teacher or training course, but it was particularly or tailored for teaching children. And I had dabbled in it and tried it. And it was so interesting because at the time when I did experiment with teaching yoga with kids, it really wasn't something that was speaking to my heart. Great in theory, not so great executionally and practically. So, story for another day, another episode. But yes, I was like, no, fuck it. Okay, here's a teacher telling me to leave the dojo, leave the yoga practice because I'm not welcome there. I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to get my own fucking practice. Okay, I'm going to get my own 200 hours. So that's what I did. I went and I got my certification, and it wasn't anything amazing in terms of I didn't go to India and I didn't go anywhere in Asia and receive some deep form of enlightenment and epiphany and awakening, as I know some people reference and claim to have experienced. But no, mine was very humble, guys. I just did a Udemy 200-hour certification, learned about the yamas, learned about the philosophy of yoga, and yeah, just delved within the content that was necessary, I guess, or required for me to feel like I was proficient enough and confident enough not only to truly understand the premise and the knowing of yoga, which had already been part of my life for a decade, but I was suddenly also inspired and called to want to teach other people as well. So since the ducks, since I was asked to leave and not attend a space and place which I really honored and loved being in, I was like, well, I clearly have to foster and create my own. So that's, I guess, where the premise and the practice started. And there were some beautiful and kind souls within my family, actually, overseas. And they were so wonderful because they were the ones who initiated this by saying, hey, you know, do you teach, and would you mind teaching me? So my sessions actually started virtually, and at the moment they still are predominantly virtually. And I guess that aspect and element just gave me confidence. And subsequent to that, it's really fostered this aspect of realizing that confidence doesn't mean that you show up in an image which you are expected to. And I guess for a long time I viewed that I wasn't confident enough because I was needing to portray myself, as I say this, needing to portray myself in a certain light and in a certain way, and play a certain role, perhaps. And through this experience, which really fostered and taught me that the power of confidence really lies in being vulnerable, being authentic, being real. It doesn't mean that you're a jackass and you're a bitch and you're an asshole. It can mean that, yes, absolutely. But those can also be roles that we begin to play as well. So yeah, I got to notice and recognize that confidence was being comfortable in your own skin, and being comfortable in your own skin day after day after day, experience after experience after experience, regardless. And this little event and this little trigger that I make reference to in the beginning of the video really made me start to foster so many micro habits, of which I've created an episode on that as well. Really started to foster and generate all these little micro habits within me. I was already dancing at the time. Almost every day I was going to the beach. It was really therapeutic. It was clearly something that I needed to do at the time to shift and move a lot of energy within my physical being in my body. And it was just so amazing. In fact, I was just thinking how I haven't danced, or I haven't gone to the beach to dance in so long, or even we've got a beautiful park and forest here. I haven't danced in just quite some time. And it was something that I used to do virtually every day. But yes, there's a time and a season for everything, because then other things enter your life for you to foster and learn and master. And I have no doubt that the magic and the gift of dancing will find me again. I trust very soon. But yes, consistency has definitely taught me that it fosters confidence. So even when you're not showing up 100% every day, just the fact that you're being consistent and even showing up on those days at a 20% level builds confidence that you have the strength, you have the capability, you have the focus, you have the discipline, you have the determination to just fucking do what you need to do, regardless of if you're operating at 20% or 50% or 80%. So I know my husband doesn't see it quite this way. He's like, if he doesn't feel particularly well on a day, he would rather just take a rest day and then return to the next day. And I'm sure that works for some people. There are many perspectives, and there are so many magical essences and beings and energies on this planet. So I have no doubt that definitely works for a lot of people. And I'm sure there's even that, I guess, it requires some form of discipline, just to be disciplined enough to know when enough is enough. But I don't know if it's the Capricornian in me, but I really, really revel and thrive in the aspect of showing up for myself every day, even if it's just 5%. Even on those days where I'm not feeling great at all, I will get on my mat, for example, and I will breathe, do breath exercises, or I will literally just lay in child's pose for a good half an hour or whatever it is. But at least I view it and see it as still showing up and still committing to the practice. And that in itself has fostered an enormous amount of confidence in me, confidence in my capability, and of course, all the aspects that I've already mentioned and tapped on, and I don't wish to repeat. So yes, today's episode is fostering confidence through consistency. Let me see if I'm called to share anything else as I look up the clock and it's 16:27. What I've observed within myself, and something that I catch myself doing sometimes, is because I set these standards and these expectations for myself, I sometimes expect and set the same expectations for others. And I'm learning to be a little gentler with others and therefore be gentler with myself when it comes to that. And know that we can't control every situation and we can't strategize every single moment, as I made reference to in yesterday's episode. Sometimes things are really out of our control and we need to allow for the spontaneity and the natural flow of life when it comes in and surprises us, just to allow us to go where we need to go. And there might be a little bit of disruption, but allowing for that disruption and honoring it and knowing that we'll be able to kind of get back on that horse and stay focused and disciplined on the areas and the aspects and the elements which are really important for us, and perhaps that we've even become a little bit obsessed with, I think is a very rare quality in today's day and age, where we are constantly distracted and we are constantly being like, people are constantly fighting for our energy and attention. Just think about how often you just go onto social media platforms and mindlessly scroll, or how freely you give your energy away to areas and situations that perhaps aren't for your betterment or for the elevated growth of your being and your soul. But yes, I'm also learning to foster a little bit of gentleness within myself, and I'm also learning to just be a little bit kinder to myself. As a young girl, I was raised in a Portuguese household, and that slipper and that wooden spoon or that belt was always on standby. So perhaps I have no doubt that has something to do with my nature in the here now moment. So yes, just remembering to be soft and gentle with myself and honoring the aspect of rest and stillness and just beingness is as important element or gift to foster and remain consistent with as all the things that we want to do to push, work harder, come on, more intensity, more, give me more. Yeah, I guess as I'm speaking, I'm just thinking about the world and where the world is, and it's all about more, consume. And we really don't make time to just be without phones scrolling, or without just being, like really just being, like soaking up our awesomeness and just like soaking up our nothingness, so yes, there is gardening happening 2 houses down, and there are leaf blowers blowing. So it's getting a little noisy up in here. And as I look up, it's 20:30 on the clock. So if you are still here and you are still digesting this content and information, which, apologies, I feel has been a little scattered and all over the place, but perhaps that's also part of the forgiveness and part of the learning process. And I am still a noob as I give episode 19 a go. But yes, wonderful humans, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing of your energy. As always, continue to sow those seeds. Allow for the flow of life to envelop you so that you may continue to grow and ultimately glow. Stay wondrous, stay awesome. Until tomorrow, peace out.